508.
Storm surge warning on the North Sea coast. Ships in distress. The two faces of a sea which connects half of northern Europe. A place of tranquility, but also of turmoil. Twice a day here, the flood reigns supreme. Water turns to land and land to water. The German Wadden Sea. Vast, endless spaces where unusual jobs are done. A postman delivers mail to a solitary island. It's a so-called halig, a small elevation in the tidal flats. Despite being underwater during storm surges, the Halligen are permanently inhabited. The post arrives punctually at low tide. Collection times are always determined by the sea. Whoever lives here is in the heart of Europe, yet also in a completely different world. People have been trying to gain land for centuries, using wooden fence structures known as groins. A team effort. A house, a meadow, and nothing more. There are only 10 Halligen in Germany, the only ones left which the North Sea hasn't swallowed up. In the background lie the open flats, a temporary landscape stretching from Holland to Denmark, the largest tidal flat area in the world. a giant hunk of rock in the middle of the North Sea. The island of Helgoland. Cliffs eaten away by the elements, in constant danger of destruction by the sea. It's a vital habitat for animals in the midst of the endless waters. There are 1,000 northern gannets alone breeding on Helgoland. These large birds enjoy ideal conditions here, even though space is often limited on the steep cliffs. The challenging sections are occupied by other birds. The nearby gannets are not always the most peaceful of neighbours. The birds gather whatever they can to build their nests, greenery and flotsam. Anything for the beloved family. And anyone too lazy to gather for themselves simply steals from the neighbours. You just have to try to avoid being caught. The smallest places have been occupied by common guillemots. An egg on the edge, a case for steady nerves. The chick is now big enough for the water, but it can't fly yet. So how to manage the 30 vertical metres downwards? Unfortunately, there's no stairway here. He has to jump. Good luck. The baby guillemot is so light that it isn't injured. Now all that's missing is the parents. They've noticed the daring dive, and for the next few weeks, they'll accompany their offspring on the open sea. Helgoland's real treasure, however, lies underwater. The rocky tidal flats of Helgoland are home to hermit crabs, sea anemones, soft corals, and sea urchins. The coveted Helgoland lobster, a brown crab, also known as knieper, meaning pincher, with his typical sideways walk. Balanidae, another kind of crab. This sea urchin is in the middle of having sex, or what he calls having sex. Sperm and eggs are simply released into the open sea. And here comes a shark, a miniature version at least. Seals are omnivorous. They'll eat anything. This lesser spotted dogfish had better hide. He relies entirely on camouflage. The seal appears to have missed him. A lucky escape. But not so fast. The enemy is still nearby. He's saved by his hard, spiky shark skin. Simply inedible. With their disagreements behind them and the neighbours robbed, the gannets can turn to their true occupation, reconnaissance flights. From up on high, they search for shoals of fish in the water below. And then nosedive down into the sea. Romantic sunsets over the sea are all well and good, but they can also display one of the rarest light phenomena in existence. Even the ancient Egyptians spoke of it. With clear enough air, perfect visibility, and a good measure of luck, one can see the green flash of the sun appear just before it sets. Jules Verne commented, "If there is green in paradise, it cannot be but of this shade." Right next to Helgoland is the sand island called Dune. Besides the obligatory seabirds, one of the largest predators in Germany lives here. The grey seal. Dune is also an island for bathing. Seals and humans meet face to face. And those with enough nerve can even splash about with the little creatures in their natural element. Beauty and the Beast. Grey seals aren't at all camera shy. They're extremely inquisitive. Some people even claim that seals chat with each other underwater. These two seem to be taking it seriously. I don't have a clue what they're saying, but somehow they're managing to communicate. It was probably more of a short story. But now they've discovered the cameraman. That looks pretty daft. A human in a diving suit. And those flippers are also fake. Will he fancy a tickle? Wild animals really are wild, after all. But along comes the next one already. Pretty chilled out predators, these grey seals. The entire tidal flat area of the eastern North Sea is a unique natural wonder full of unbelievable forms and colours. The flats are dry for 6 hours and 12 minutes before the sea comes back in. High tide. It may look grey and bleak, but the surface of the flats is one of the most productive environments on Earth. An ideal breeding ground for algae. It's not the salt marshes which are fertile, but the shallow flats. When the water recedes, countless life forms tuck into the blanket of algae. Aquatic snails, in fast motion, extremely agile. This is not dog dirt, but worm dirt. In between lie a few common cockles which have kicked the bucket. Worms love the Wadden Sea with its algae beds. Crabs too, of course. At low tide, they dive under the surface. Worms are as important for the tidal flats as ants for the rainforest. A lugworm shifts 25 kilos of sand per year. It's an absolute paradise for birds here. The oyster catcher can peck away anywhere it wants. It always finds a worm. Now let's see. Gotcha! And another. Okay, we get the picture. This worm-filled paradise attracts 12 million birds a year, and all this with no air traffic control. A flight over the picturesque coast of North Frisia. In some areas, the North Sea heaps up sand that it's picked up elsewhere. The largest island in North Frisia, Sylt, the perfect holiday destination. There are more than enough waves at the beach in Westerland, and more than enough tourists in summer. The personnel of the German Lifeguard Association aren't only watching the sea. They're coming very close to the beach. Porpoises, the world's smallest whales. Inquisitive, just like a grey seal. The real high season, however, is in spring and autumn, when the beaches are empty again. High season for birds. Waders such as bar-tailed godwits, red knots, and a host of others arrive en masse. Wellness tourism for our feathered friends. Simply unmissable. Now we're leaving the German coast to head north. The most northerly branch of the Wadden Sea, Denmark. Dreamy islets in the endless sea. Relaxation banks for the grey seals. The north is the true home of the grey seal. The cold water doesn't disturb them at all. But such a welcoming sunbed is also not to be sneezed at. Just when you want a quick 40 winks, the neighbours have to start making a racket. First the young gang, and then the big boys. Soon mating season will arrive, and that's when they'll really get down to business. Now we head further into magical Denmark. Denmark also offers paradise for birdlife. Teperne, for example, with its rare and curious residents. This impractical plumage belongs to a ruff. Every male wears his very own costume, Rococo style. And what does a ruff do in mating season? He plays rough, of course. The plain little characters are the females. They're the ones the extravagant showmen wish to impress. The Jutland Peninsula. The dunes here tower up to 100 metres high. In 1910, the sand began to wander towards the lighthouse. A few decades later, it was abandoned. Wind, water and sand ensure constant change on the North Sea. Whoever lives here has to get used to transience. Thus land emerges from the sea and then disappears again after a while. Sometimes it's like the Sahara here. Not a bad view, is it? Let's head even further north. After a stretch of open water, a mystical landscape appears. Rocks in the sea, the scary coast of Norway. A monumental backdrop. The fjords. Even apple trees grow here, thanks to the Gulf Stream. Gigantic glaciers ate their way through the mountains during the Ice Age. Thus freed from pressure, Scandinavia continues even now to rise out of the sea, up to 1 centimetre a year. But this is only the tip of the iceberg. Under the water, the rock faces can plunge to over 1,000 metres deep. Here in the underworld of the fjord, something astonishing is concealed. This is the realm of the cold water corals. Corals don't only occur in the tropics. Welcome to the enchanted garden of the North Sea. Now all we need is a beautiful dancer, a lion's mane jellyfish. On the cliffs, sea anemones cover every square centimetre. These are peacock worms, whose tentacles look a bit like peacock tails. The water is cold, but not icy, thanks to the Gulf Stream. That's why so many life forms can survive here. A northern stone crab at work, always taking its time. A cuckoo wrasse. A bit of colour doesn't hurt in the coral garden of the Vikings. Now then, who fancies a trip to the depths? Hold on tight. Now this is a real shark. And this guy we know better lying on a seafood platter. The Norway lobster in its natural habitat. A hagfish. This fish, a gurnard, scuttles with its spiky fins across the seabed, and by the way, if you pull a gurnard out of the sea, he growls. The Norway lobster only tolerates his co-species on a buffet platter. While alive, he ferociously defends his territory against any intruder. Chasing the loser a little always looks impressive. A few sea pens are in his way. Sea pens are also animals and filter what they can from the water. The perfect hiding place for a poor cod. And here's another culinary delicacy. This is what he really looks like, the famous long-spined anglerfish. Enough splashing around. Let's have another look at the fjords from above. The old glacial trails lead the sea miles inland. Norway is one of the world's must-see destinations. Simply breathtaking. Here they hide the giant glaciers from long ago. Traces of the glaciers are all over the landscape. A world straight from a fantasy novel. And in its midst, some survivors from the Ice Age. Musk oxen. The scraggy-haired creatures are efficient energy savers. Although two males in mating season can move around rather fiercely. But apart from that, life is basically looking around and munching. And pretty soon you've whiled away a few thousand years. Careful with that horn. Who knows how many calves have been accidentally stabbed by their own mothers. Aren't they cuddly, the little baby musk oxen? Now it's turning really romantic. The tundra is glowing. Could that be a Norwegian lemming walking on water like Jesus? Okay, the water's actually frozen underneath. A little magic trick. It's not only the weather that's becoming uncomfortable, the mood of the male muskoxen is reaching boiling point. Two 300-kilo heavyweights clash in the ultimate duel. Let's see what the head can withstand. Whoever gives up is the loser, so we need an even longer run-up. That's about a big enough headache for today. Back to the sea. A white-tailed eagle, the expert fish catcher at top speed. As a seagull, you just look on with envy. We've arrived in northern Norway. Here the North Sea reaches its edge and runs into the Norwegian Sea. Pilot whales plough through the water. The largest predator in existence. The sperm whale. After a few minutes catching some air, he dives down to the depths again to grab some food. Giant squids. 18 metres of whale meets 13 metres of squid. We will never see exactly what these giants are up to under the water. This great predator, however, works at the surface. Every autumn, killer whales search for shoals of fish off the Norwegian coast. Even in the dark, they can locate the position of objects in the water by the echo of their calls. Herring. The whales encircle the shoal and grab one fish after another. Now it's back to the deep. It's astonishing how colourful this underwater world is, even here in the far north. Corals and starfish. A gorgon's head, relative of the starfish. A first-rate hiding place. With a bit of luck, you can also encounter some mysterious inhabitants of the deep sea here. Ghost sharks, also known as ratfish or rabbitfish. These prehistoric creatures occasionally surface to go hunting. But there's an even creepier fish on offer here. The Greenland shark. He can reach up to 7 meters long and around 200 years old. Very calmly, he emerges out of the deep. He sensed some prey. He has a parasite in his eyes which makes him blind. But he doesn't need to see much. His sense of smell is outstanding. Gradually, he gets closer to his goal. There on the left, you can see the ocular parasites hanging. His objective was a dead seal. The gravedigger of the North Sea at his daily chores. And as stealthily as he arrived, he disappears again down to the deep. Now then, anyone for a swim in the North Sea? Don't worry though, Greenland sharks only appear in the far north. Let's leave this cosy place and head west across the sea. And what do we have here? It's the wild, romantic coast of Scotland. What a panorama! The cliffs of Duncansby Head. The sheer cliffs of Scotland's coastline are tailor-made for seabirds. Guillemots who didn't have enough space in Helgoland can raise their young here in the dizzy heights. Mass tourism. They only cluster together on the cliffs for the little ones. Their true home is the sea. The eggs are shaped so they can't roll away. The guillemots show their real talents in their natural element. The sea has always been full of fish here. Due to climate change, however, the number of sand eels is dropping. Who says that birds can only fly through the air? Even small fish are a large task for the chicks. Right next door, on the grass, some strange-looking relatives have settled in. Puffins. Their large coloured beak has earned them the nickname the clown of the ocean. Every year, the same couples get together for mating season. Like little hobbits, they've dug out a breeding burrow for themselves. With such a large beak, it would be a shame not to use it for the odd kiss now and then. The sea is a plentiful food store for puffins as well, while the partner keeps the egg nice and warm. Mating season means masses of air traffic on the Scottish coast. They may not be elegant flyers, but they are ideal underwater hunters. They can dive down to 60 metres. Always a beak full of sand eels. Yummy. At the foot of the cliffs lives another Scottish family. European otters. These sociable creatures make themselves comfortable amongst the seaweed. Otters have one of the densest furs. They have as much hair on 1 square centimetre of skin as one of us has on our whole head. If we have any hair left, that is. It makes ideal insulation for diving in cold water. There is also an optimal selection of prey here. Crabs live dangerously in otter territory. The seafood gourmets already have their crab forks built in. Simply remove lid. It's that easy. The grey heron hopes that the gang will leave him something behind. As soon as the crab is done with, you just grab yourself another. And what else do we know about Scotland? Cliffs and rough sea? Sheep? Okay, fair enough. And Highland cattle. Their proud owner takes special care of their fur.
Where did you go?
With their shaggy hairstyle, the short-legged characters can be outside here the whole year round. A few horses right down by the sea, and one with antlers. It's unmistakably a red deer, of course. The horses don't appear to be surprised by anything anymore. The deer hold their noisy rutting session right here by the water. The lords of the harem have to keep an eye on both their females and the troublesome competitors. It's a tough life for a deer. Now that is some sight, enough to make every hunter's trigger finger twitch. The animals don't even shy away from direct contact with the North Sea. Their reward? A salty seaweed salad. After a fine feed and a nice dip in the pool, it's back to the bellowing match. My heart's in the Highlands, my heart is not here. My heart's in the Highlands, a-chasing the deer, a-chasing the wild deer and following the roe. My heart's in the Highlands, wherever I go. This is Bass Rock off the Scottish coast. Here we'll be meeting some old friends. In mating season, 100,000 northern gannets crush together on the island. Only 400 metres long and uninhabited, Bass Rock is the origin of the gannet's Latin name, Morus bassanus. The nests lie a neat beak's length apart from one another. You wouldn't want that in your eye. How the couples find their nursery in a swarm like that is a mystery. Loving monogamy is the rule here as well. Feeding is not for the faint-hearted. The young ones don't seem to be too bothered, however. The North Sea tides are set off by the tidal waves of the Great North Atlantic. Each wave hits the Scottish east coast here, travels down to England, and after 12 hours finally reaches the German Bight. A boatload of birdwatchers. Every year they head to the Farne Islands to descend upon a colony of Arctic terns. The feathered parents don't think very much of the photo safari. The terns are now working at full capacity to satisfy the whining chicks. Is that morsel not perhaps slightly too big? Ah well, never mind. There's zero tolerance for human disturbance in the nesting area. And if you don't want to listen, you'll learn the hard way. The White Cliffs of Dover. This is the English Channel, which links the North Sea to the Atlantic. There are enough lighthouses for the busy shipping traffic. Every year, fish emerge at the foot of the White Cliffs, which make the great white shark look like a toy. Basking sharks, up to 10 metres long. The second largest fish in the world, next to the whale shark. Luckily, they're plankton eaters. They swim along the surface with their mouths wide open, filtering crabs, fish eggs and so on from the murky channel water. "1,800 tons of water per hour rush through the mouth and gills of the giant shark. We're on the move again, this time southeast, back to the continent, and to a land barely above sea level. First of all, tidal flats again. The Wadden Sea begins here. In Holland. The windmills are not for grain. They're pumping water from the meadows. It's a battle against the sea for every metre. Unless there's no wind. That's the Oosterschelde Dam, intended to protect the countryside against the destruction of the waves. Directly off this beach, the annual summit meeting of the most dazzling inhabitants of the North Sea takes place. The common cuttlefish, about the size of a small dog. There's the eggs they've discarded, or rather stuck on. Hundreds of the molluscs meet here punctually every year to find their blind date. It's an ideal spot in which to supply their eggs with oxygen. Decked out in fashionable stripes, the romantic hopefuls size each other up in their marine marriage market. The females search for something strong to anchor their egg parcel to against the current. The cephalopods are certainly not in relaxed mood right now. With tentacles on their heads, it's not quite clear. Are they wrestling, or do they actually love each other dearly? In only a few weeks, the strange creatures will part company calmly and head off in the sea. Now we're flying further east, back to Germany, specifically the coast and islands of East Frisia. Vast salt meadows and marshland, landing sites for birdlife. The backdrop here is slightly reminiscent of Holland. Brent geese passing through. A panorama in classical regional style. Lighthouses, protective dikes, and sheep, of course. The woolly lawnmowers trample the grass nice and firm. Sheep are invaluable for the dike. Very nearby, some peculiar birds are breeding. I wonder why they're called spoonbills. The large-billed birds have only been back in Germany again for a few years. Although they're not very beautiful, they're certainly special. The nest simply lies flat on the damp ground. The baby spoonbills can be rather tiresome. The young ones' beaks are already quite wide, but haven't developed yet into the full spoon form of the adult birds. In protected spots, within bays or on the lee side of islands, mudflats form. With a special sledge, one can travel through the sludge. Gill nets have captured a few fish from the tide. Place. Landscapes don't get much flatter than this. Flocks of migrants setting off. Mass tourism to the warmer south. Nothing new for birds. Winter is not far off. Some birds, however, are arriving now and will stay here during the colder months. For these creatures, winter on the North Sea is downright tropical. They arrive in flocks from Siberia and Scandinavia. Barnacle geese. All winter guests have to be completely weather resistant. Storm season is beginning. Back to Helgoland and the neighbouring island with its seal colony. Young ones having fun in the water. The seals have picked exactly the most unpleasant time of year to have children. Childbirth is no problem for seals. The little one, however, has a bad case of hiccups. They find each other again by memorizing each other's scent. The male disturbs right now. Shortly after the birth, mating season will begin again already. First of all, however, the new arrival has to be thoroughly sniffed over. During this time, the 200-kilo males fight over every female. The great predators enter the arena. Things are going to get messy. It looks worse than it is, however, and no one is mortally wounded. The baby seals are miracles of growth. They arrive at 10 kilos, but after only 3 weeks have reached a chubby 50 kilos in weight. The secret seal formula? Milk with 50% fat. The mother only returns from fishing once or twice daily to attend to her pups. He mostly just lies around and grows. There we have it, the natural world of the North Sea. Apart from one small detail, the fearsome storm flood. When a cyclone from the Atlantic catapults the tide against the coast. When the North Sea clutches at the land. "400 years ago there was land here, where the angry waves now rage. It was engulfed forever, along with 10,000 people, in the floods. The North Sea never rests.